There we are.
All right. Hello, everybody. Thanks for joining us today for this is kind of part two of our previous session that was about accessibility features within Windows and Mac operating systems. Today, we're going to take that a step further and discuss mobile accessibility. So it'll be, a lot of similar features, but just on different operating systems. So on Android, OS, and iOS is what we're overall going over today. And this will be pretty demonstration heavy because we want to show you guys exactly what's going on. It's easy just to like describe these things. And Google, everyone has the ability to look up any random accessibility features, but we want to show you really how they work, how they operate, how to turn them on and off, and what to expect when you do these things. So that's kind of the goal of today. And both of your presenters, excuse me, is myself. I am James Whitney. I'm an occupational therapist, but I am MDTAP's assistive technology clinician. And Stephen's with me today. I will allow him to introduce himself.
Hello, everyone. I'm Stephen Polacek. I'm the Director of IT Accessibility Policy and Programs. If you've been here before, you likely have seen me for the last several months. Today, we're happy to have James with us. A couple of housekeeping items before we dive into everything. We do have captioning available, so you should be able to turn that on from your menu ribbon. We are demonstrating things on the phone. So just a word of warning is that this might get a little wonky because both the iPhone and the Android security settings don't allow some of these features to be shared. So James will have an overhead camera to show his. I'll be trying to mix and match between what I can share from the screen. James will as well, but then we'll also try and hold things up to the camera a couple times to show you things like the color filters and such. So just be ready for that. We will take questions at the end, so please feel free to put your questions in Q&A in chat. I do see one quick thing. I'm just going to answer that now. We missed the last presentation. Was it recorded and available? It was, and it is posted on our YouTube channel. I will share that link at the end for you.
Awesome. Thanks, Stephen.
Thank you.
And just really quickly, anyone who's not familiar with MDTAP or the Maryland Assistive Technology Program, we are a statewide program. We are one of 56, so we are part of the Tech Act that was passed with the ADA, but basically every state has a program like ours in a lot of ways, different from ours in some ways, but we are Maryland's program. So we serve the entire state of Maryland, all ages, all disabilities, and we wear a few different hats. So we do demonstrations and loans of AT devices. So I am in our AT library today, which is where we house a lot of our assistive technology devices. So basically what we can do is meet with folks who have disabilities or other professionals in the field. So OTs and PTs and speech language pathologists, also special education teachers, caregivers, et cetera, et cetera. So we work with folks who have disabilities as well as adjacent professionals who work with folks who have disabilities. Basically, our overall goal is to spread information and access to AT devices and services. So our demos and loans are just one part of what we do. We also have a financial loan program that handles any inquiries for people obtaining financial loans, which we have 2 loan officers who help handle all of those applications, and they help just kind of disperse those funds if those clients who have applied to overall meet all the pre-qualifications for those things. We also have a donation-based program that folks can donate old equipment or things that they no longer have use for to us, and we can clean those up and give those back out to folks. And we also have a IT department with Stephen and Dan, who both work together and help ensure that all of our digital content is accessible, so screen readers, captioning, et cetera, basically just making sure that websites and PDFs and all digital content are accessible across all kinds of disabilities. So we also have that as well, and Stephen is the director of our IT accessibility program. So we kind of wear a number of hats, but that is just a brief overview of kind of what to expect with us. If anyone's curious to find out more about any of those specific departments, like don't hesitate to reach out really to any of us, and we can kind of clear up any ambiguity or help point you in the right direction. But first and foremost, we are a free program. Our goals of today, our objectives is what is briefly mentioned, but we're gonna, Stephen and I are gonna tag team and split this up. But I'm gonna go over iOS accessibility for iPhone specifically. I have an iPhone next to me, and Stephen's gonna go over Android accessibility. And how we're going to do that is mainly through a live demonstration, going through the phone and the accessibility settings, and just kind of going down the list and just kind of showing what these phones have to offer now, and how to turn these things on and off, and what happens when you turn them on, and turn them off. We're going to go over that, and then and then after that, just overall, just talk about other applicable softwares and hardwares that can work in conjunction with these settings, that can kind of open up a couple more doors as far as accessibility is concerned. And we'll close with some questions and just kind of wrap it up there. If anyone has questions along the way, don't hesitate to just type them in the Q&A chat, or just hang on to them, and we will leave time at the end to go over everything. And like Stephen had just mentioned, he will post the link to our previous webinar going over Windows and Mac OS accessibility as well. So with that being said, I'm going to kind of kick things off here, and talk about iOS accessibility. So essentially, how to get to these settings. So it's going to sound pretty straightforward, but all these things have a cogwheel or a settings button on them. So if you click in that, and then you can scroll down to accessibility. I will demonstrate here. I'm going to switch my camera actually. So I have a nice little handy camera over here that I will be able to kind of showcase a little bit of this. So essentially, so I'm going to tap on my settings cogwheel here. I can get right in. I could also type settings in, over here on my app search bar. I could just type in settings, it'll pop that up. Or I could also do a long hold on my side button over here. And I could ask Siri to also open up settings. Open up settings. So a couple different ways that I could go about that, with either a voice command or just tapping on the cogwheel button itself, or typing in the search for it. If I can't find, it does happen that apps get kind of moved around, or they're, like folders of apps exist. You can't find what you're looking for. So always easy just to type it in, or ask Siri. But anyway, I'm in my general settings now. Like what I would do is scroll down. I'm going to try to not move around too much. That way we can all see what I'm doing here. But I would scroll down, and there's a little button that says accessibility. So like when you click into that, it brings up all of your different accessibility options. So starting with our vision accessibility, and then it has physical and motor accessibility settings, hearing, and then just like a general accessibility here at the very bottom. So I know this might be kind of going in and out of focus, but I'm going to try not to move too quick here. So starting with vision at the top, I'm just going to kind of run down a couple of these. So it starts with VoiceOver. And VoiceOver is your screen reader on iOS. So in Windows, it's called Narrator, and it's called VoiceOver on iOS, and I believe Mac OS as well. It's called TalkBack on Android. So all these things have different names for what they are, but essentially they're a screen reader. So when you turn this on, accessibility, back button. So it's on the back button right now. So basically, I'm not going to demonstrate too much about this because it's kind of involved on how to really navigate everything. But I will do a quick demonstration. Is that once you have this on, basically, it's just a series of swiping. So I can swipe one way. So I don't have to tap on anything specifically. I just swipe on the phone left to activate the selected item. Or I can go the other way and I can move back. And then you basically just navigate and it's going to keep talking over me because that's what these things are supposed to do. But basically double tapping, once you swipe to a button or something that you want to actually click on or interact with, then you would just give it a double tap and then it would click on that. So for instance, double tap timeout, double tap timeout. So I could scroll up to whatever settings I want, and I actually want to go turn this off. So I can scroll up here. And once I get here, I just double tap, and then I just turned it off by double tapping. So I don't want to get too involved with the voiceover function, other than it will read everything that's on your screen, and you can swipe left or, and that will move where it's reading off of, down or up or forwards or backwards. I can increase the rate of speech, so I can make the assistant, or I can make the voiceover, talk faster, which a lot of folks will turn that on who are blind individuals, because like you don't want it to take all day to read what's going on. So the faster the better when you're comfortable with it for some folks. That's essentially how it works in like a nutshell. And there are different settings and navigations and hotkeys and commands that can be changed and adjusted, and they can kind of make things make a little bit more, just overall fluency with how you use this. And you can also hook up a braille device to your phone here. So I can pair a braille device. So I would choose down here, whoops, ideally a Bluetooth braille device would be popping up right now. I could click on it, I could pair that up, and then I could use my braille device to read what's going on my phone screen. So I do know that it's very helpful for deaf and deaf and blind folks to having that tactile braille device to help them just to be able to overall navigate with their phone. So that is voiceover there. I'm going to keep moving on here just for sake of time, and I want Stephen to have enough time to go over all the Android settings for everyone. So then next on the list, we have Zoom. Zoom can be turned on here. And then as you can see, I am much more zoomed into my screen. I can adjust that with a simple 3-finger press. So if I would say on my main screen, I could do just like with a 3-finger tap. It's a 3-finger double tap, and I can zoom in and out of things. So if I was trying to read an email or something, it might be helpful that, then I could have a 3-finger double tap, and I can use 3 fingers and scroll around as well. I can scroll up and down. I can use 3 fingers. I can tap back out of that, because when you zoom in, it is harder to see your screen. You can't see everything that's going on. So the more you zoom in, then like the less of your screen you're able to see, right? So it's good to be able to zoom in and out quickly by just using 3 fingers and double tapping, and then adjusting that, accordingly. And there is ways to adjust your maximum zoom level here at the bottom. I can adjust, if it's at 6%, or I'm sorry, 6x, I can go up to 15x, and so forth. So that will adjust how far the max zoom is. So it doesn't have to be quite as drastic. It's just up to you, like what you want that to be. So that is the zoom feature. There are a couple different ways to adjust that. If I wanted to be a full screen zoom or just a window zoom and things like that. So if we did I just turned window zoom on. So if I was down here, and like, let me turn that off. So I can change the zoom region. So a full screen zoom is what I was just showing. A windowed zoom, if I take again 3 fingers and I do a tap, it'll pull up just a window right here. And then that will be where things are zoomed in on, not necessarily the entire screen. So that might make it also easier to and I can move that around as well. So I can move that screen magnifier around. Instead of the whole screen being zoomed, it could be just that window, and it still works with those 3 taps. So I'm going to turn that off for now and keep moving down this list. And then we have display and text size next. So if I bold the text, I'll click that on. It might be hard to tell, but it just bolded all the text that's on this screen right now. So I can turn that on and off. It just bolds things. Larger text is exactly that. I can turn this on. I can make the text much larger. And now when I go back to my accessibility settings, now everything is just at a larger size. So that can be, helpful for a lot of folks with any kind of visual deficits. It's just making all the text larger. Now I can read things a little bit better. And I can also adjust just how big that is with as a scrolling bar here at the bottom. So I'm going to turn that off and just leave everything kind of how it was here. But that is the bold text, larger text. I can turn these button labels on and off. If you can see, it kind of shows you with these little circles if these things are on or off or not. It just gives you more of a visual representation if buttons are on or buttons are off. Button shapes is able to be turned on, and that's if there's a clickable link or a button, it might give you an underline or it might bold those a little bit more. So it helps kind of show folks and differentiate if it's actually a clickable button or just text on the screen. So there are ways to change that. You can change the transparency, excuse me, I can reduce the transparency of some things that might make it, instead of having like a background that's kind of transparent here with some of these apps, I can make things more opaque and not as transparent in case it's kind of like throwing me off with like too much visual, I guess just overall visual things going on the screen. I can reduce transparency and make things more opaque and blocked out. It might help me overall be able to keep my focus on what I intend to actually look at and not seeing the background of things. I can increase contrast. That just helps all the bright colors and the dark colors just appear more different. So as you can see, if I turn that on, then it increases the whites and the grays and these buttons. When I turn it off, makes them a little more subtle. So in a general sense, that's how that works. And there's just kind of going down here to more relevant things. I can turn smart invert on. So inverting it'll invert the colors. Smart invert will invert things like text and things like that. It won't necessarily invert things like photos, because when you invert a photograph, it makes it look like a negative, almost like you're in the red room and like developing photos yourself, that you start with negatives and then you actually print out the positives come later. So you don't always want your photos being negative, obviously. So smart invert will kind of help that you don't have to worry about that. It'll still invert your text and things, but not things like photographs. Classic invert. So I have my phone in dark mode. So actually, like when I do invert on my phone, it makes things in regular light mode now, because I have it just all the time in dark mode. So if I do a classic invert, it actually like reverts that more or less back. And then as you can see here, then like this photo in the background is actually negative now, because it just inverted all of my text. So anything that's red or blue might look purple now and things like that. But it can change and make things potentially more legible. Like this is my email list. If I go back, then everyth's dark again. So there's no wrong way to invert colors or choose kind of like what your baseline is. If you want it to be dark mode like mine, or keep it in regular mode. And there is things like brightness and reducing white point can just help kind of make things not as bright. It might help reduce the actual brightness of the white colors and things like that. All right, so I'm going to keep moving here. Motion, I can reduce the motion of things. So when I'm opening up an app or things like that, then motion, if I don't have motion on and say, I click on this and see how it kind of brings that up. There's a lot of motion going on there. So if I reduce that motion and then I click on something, it just kind of pops it up. It's not as much motion going on with it dragging all the way over. So that's basically what like that is that I can reduce the emotion. And there are also ways to, and next on this list, autoplay message effects. So I don't know if anyone uses iPhone, if someone's ever said happy birthday, it'll like have fireworks and things like exploding like on your text screen. So you can actually turn that off so it won't autoplay those. It can be kind of jarring. Or I just keep mine on. It doesn't bother me too much. Spoken content is the next feature on here. I'm going to keep moving just for sake of time. Speak selection is a nice button to have right here that I can go somewhere with text. So let's say I open up, let's go to this as kind of just like a random email list. And let's see if I can highlight something with text on it here. There we go. So I can highlight some text. I should be able to have this speak out loud to me. Speak.
See how AI experts are reshaping work, which talent is in demand, and WH.
And then, so it said WH because I didn't highlight the rest of that word. So it's nice to have spoken content. I can highlight things and have it read out loud to me. What I can also do, which was next on this list, is speak screen. So I can take two fingers and I can swipe down from the top. So let's try that here.
News and notes.
And then
Top
now
AI jobs to watch. External.
It's going to speak the whole screen for me. So a screen reader is a lot more interactive with how you navigate through the phone, but speak, screen in this sense, it brings me up a nice little play pause bar. I can press play. I can skip to like the next. I can skip to the next kind of speaking part or next paragraph. I can make it faster or slower. So then 2x would be
OTT, open news and M, notes, news and notes.
So it's so a lot faster at 2x, right? So I can change that. Halftime, I'll make it even slower. So just like without beating a dead horse, that is speak selection. I select the text, then I press speak whole screen. I can take two fingers, I can swipe them down, and then I can press play. So it is nice to have those selections. I'm going to turn mine back off, and then I can change the speaking rate. I can change the voices and things like that as well, all within here. And then audio descriptions. That is, if there is audio descriptions on a video or something like that, then I can turn that on to just automatically play those. So a movie or a YouTube video, if they offer audio descriptions, because not everything offers them, if they do offer them, I can have them automatically play. So let's keep this train moving here. Next is physical and motor. So this is more physical access and different ways to interact with the phone. So if I go into touch here, I can turn what's called assistive touch on. Assistive touch brings up, you guys might have seen this kind of movable just dot before. And if I click on assistive touch, I can click on this button and basically I can interact with my phone through this now. So I can go to my, I could go home and that'll just take me back home. I could hit Siri and now Siri's up, but I don't need Siri. Or I can go on my device, I can go volume up, I can go volume down. So just different ways to interact with your device. I used to use this all the time when my like case that I had my phone in was actually broken. And I couldn't use my volume buttons. They just weren't working anymore. But I didn't want to not have a case. So until I got a new case, I used that for a while just to turn my volume up and down. So really simple and kind of abstract way to need something like that. But that was an instance that I used assistive touch to navigate through my phone because I couldn't access my physical buttons on the sides. And there's also lots of ways to kind of set these up with whatever shortcuts you want. So I can make a custom shortcut where I can customize a pinch and drag or a rotate, or I can customize physical touch kind of like recipes where I can kind of do certain things that way. So that's in a nutshell assistive touch. It can help you just kind of get through your phone. And I can change how those accommodations work, the vibrations and all kinds of different things there. And then next we have Face ID, that just requires Face ID as an additional level of security to kind of get in things on your phone, and haptic on successful authentication. It'll give you vibrations and things that'll let you know that it's successfully authenticated your request to log in. So we have those kinds of things. Switch control. I have a little video later that I'm going to talk about switch control. So I'm going to skip that for right now. But basically, I can press a switch or a button and I can navigate through my phone by pressing one button kind of over and over again. So I have a video that'll help show that and help me out there. But I will go into voice control really quickly because voice control, it can change. It's not like Siri. It's quite different, but it kind of operates in a certain way of your phone listening to you. So if I go, so if you guys can see this now my phone is split up into all kinds of different grids and numbers. So basically I can use those grids as ways to interact with my phone. It doesn't, which I know this looks chaotic right now. So I can turn the overlay off. I can make it just certain clickable buttons. So I could say tap 1. Tap 1. There we go. So it has the back button is numbered as 1. So if I say tap and then that number, it'll press whatever that clickable button is. So I do like that for item numbers or just item names. Then I could say tap voice control. Didn't do it. Tap voice control. Well, either way, it should be corresponding to the back button, but I am going to keep moving here because the grid is really the cool kind of piece here. So now everything is split up into grids. So if I wanted to open up, say, my Google Calendar, I would say tap 20. And since my Google Calendar is down here at the 20, so now I can say tap on whatever number there is, and it'll click on that number. So it creates a lot more clickable space within your phone on voice commands. So basically you could say tap and then a button, and then it would be able to do whatever that button is correspondent to. And also voice control can work beyond just tapping buttons. It has a lot of other ways to interact with it. But for sake of time, we're just going to kind of stop there. But I could even say turn voice control off. And it heard me, it brings this up, and then I could say tap 23 or whatever button's there, and I could hit confirm. But I'm going to turn that off and just kind of give that as like a brief introduction to voice control. It can be a great way for folks with limited finger and upper extremity control to be able to split their phone into a grid and be able to interact with various sections of their phone. So I do like voice control a lot. Down here we have side button. So if I triple click my side button, which is over here on the right side of my phone, if I go 1, 2, 3, then it brings up this. And I can turn on my assistive touch that I showed you guys a second ago, or my magnifier. So I've created shortcuts by just doing a triple tap with my side button here. And I can change like what those are too. So I could make it different things if I wanted to. But that's a quick way to use your side button as a way to quickly turn specific things on and off. I could go assistive touch is on, and now look, now I have my assistive touch button just popped up really quickly without having to go all the way to my settings and turning it on. So the side button can be used in that regard. Also, I can control nearby, iOS devices as well. So as long as I'm logged into the same Apple account, I could control an iPad over there, or I could control my phone with that iPad, vice versa. I could use my phone as an Apple TV remote by swiping on my phone. I could use that and pair it with my TV. So I wouldn't need an extra remote. I could use this as the remote. So it can kind of reduce the need for extra external devices. Keyboards, I can turn like external keyboards, I can connect to this, and then I can turn things on and off like sticky keys and slow keys and like repetitious keys, so like I can make those like settings adjustments within my iPhone, even if I use an external keyboard. And real quick, we are getting towards the end. I'm going to pass this off to Stephen. I can pair hearing devices, up to this phone. So things like cochlear implants with certain sound processors, it does depend what sound processor you're using, as just to make sure that the iOS is compatible with that. As long as it's like fairly not too old, I would say it should be fine. But it does depend, and things like hearing aids as well. So I can pair those up specifically for hearing aids and those cochlear implant sound processors, and then I can just hear whatever is on my phone directly in my hearing aids and my cochlear implants. Sound recognition is pretty cool. I can turn that on, and basically your phone will continuously listen, and I can choose what sounds I want it to alert me to. So if a dog is barking or a cat is meowing or a fire alarm is going off, or a doorbell is dinging, I can have my phone can recognize those sounds, and it can bring me up an alert that'll literally pop up and say, we just recognized a dog barking. And I can say, okay, so basically it helps alert me to specific sounds and things like that. RTT and TTY. If somebody calls me on my cell phone, I can text back to them. So it's RTT is real-time text. Um, and TTY is teletype, and that would be having an external typing thing. So like when I'm speaking to someone, I might use a hardware TTY device, and I can select that if I have one. Or I can actually, if somebody's talking to me, it'll caption what they're saying to me, and I could type back to them. So we could actually speak, if I was a deaf individual or hard of hearing, I could see what they're saying to me with the live captioning. I could type back to them straight on my phone. And then, audio visual. So I could turn things like mono audio on, and I can customize my headphones and like noise cancellation. I could adjust the balance of the audio if I want it to be more all the way on the left side or the right side, like depending on which ear I prefer to hear certain things out of. And subtitles and captioning, of course, you can kind of turn those on and off with AI and things like that. And then lastly, here down the general, guided access. It can help keep the phone in a single app that allows you to control which features are available, which it wants me to turn that on with a triple click. But so there are things like guided access, Siri, and accessibility shortcuts. Was that like triple button on triple clicking the side button here, like I showed you earlier. And if I wanted to add things like a classic invert, then I could go triple click, and now I have a quick button to change my classic invert just by adding it to my triple click home button, and I can turn that on and off really quickly. So it can help you just turn that on and off instead of having to go all the way back to my settings and so forth. I know that was a lot, and we are recording this. It will be posted on our YouTube channel, and I'm going to pass it over to Stephen next and let him take it away with Android OS.
Thanks, James. As he said, there is a lot to this, and we're going through things very quickly, but that is because of just how much there is. So if you have questions about further information about some of these things, please reach out. We're always happy to discuss this and explain the features in more depth. It's just, we're trying to give just a general overview how to do that. Oh, give me just a moment. I need to put my phone as a co-host. So hold on. Oh, James, I think I need you to make my phone co-host. Apologies, everyone. Forgot to do that.
I just did it.
Yep.
I think you should be live. Yep.
Yep, there we go. Okay.
All right.
Share screen. Start. There we are. Okay. So let me go over to my settings. So a lot of this is the same. Most of the features are going to be there, so this is going to be a little bit faster, but I will try to go into a few differences that there are between Android and iOS. So in our case, settings is way at the bottom, titled accessibility. So I can press that. And then I have it divided in roughly the same categories that James did: visibility, hearing enhancements, interaction, and dexterity. Now, because my phone is a Samsung has a built-in screen reader, but then Android has TalkBack, which is, as you notice, in installed services there near the bottom. So every Android phone will have TalkBack. So you're probably going to want to rely on that more because it's honestly a little bit better. Because I've used both for testing purposes, but it's just that will always be there. If there's another one listed, it's probably going to depend a little bit on the make of your phone. Like a Google Pixel probably will just default to that, or it might have Chromevox in it. So just be aware of those facts that if it just says screen reader, it might not be the one I'm discussing here. However, try them out. If you think it works better for you, by all means. So visibility enhancements. Kind of the same deal. We have high contrast fonts. We have a keyboard, button shapes again. We have color inversion, color adjustment, color lens, remove animations, all the same thing. So if I turn on high contrast fonts, as you notice, the subtitles or the explanations of each of these features is now in a stark white instead of the kind of subtle gray that most most of these phones and websites and such will use as kind of like um, a more subtle enhancement. So something like the high contrast keyboard, if I turn that on, um, I can actually show you here. So if you see, I can select the type of keyboard I want rather than just the standard gray buttons. I can have it black with yellow. I can have black with white. I can have yellow with black text. I can have blue with white text. So number of options for the keyboard itself. Button shapes and such are the same. Color inversion is kind of the same. This doesn't share across screen because of Google security or Android security settings. So I'm going to hold up my phone awkwardly, and you can see how it's different than the shared screen there. It is the white with black text because my phone is also in dark mode. So it's showing as kind of a regular thing. And the shared screen doesn't have it. Android does not have the smart invert, or at least to my knowledge, it doesn't. I have yet to find it if they've added it. So we don't have that feature on Android, unfortunately. However, we have a bunch of the other settings. You can have color filters. As you notice, you can make it grayscale. You can make it for the 3 most common types of color blindness: red, green, green, red, and blue, yellow. Then you can also personalize it, so you can change it to fit your own personal needs. And then you can change the intensity too. Now that's just an overlay of the screen, so it affects pretty much everything. Just I've gotten mixed reports from some colorblind individuals I know of how useful that is, but again, it gives you at least something if your apps or whatever aren't able to use it. Magnification is roughly the same. We can either have a window that appears over top of it. In this case, as you notice, it's telling me there's an accessibility button when I enable this. Again, this does not show on screen, but if I hold up my phone, there is that same window James had, and I can move that around. I can use that to uh, read the screen, and then I can just get rid of it as I wish. Magnification, same way. It's the triple tap. It'll zoom in on that spot, zoom out from that spot, so I can use that as I please. There's also a separate one, screen zoom, where in this case, this is kind of just a resize of everything on the screen. I think iOS has this, but I don't think they keep it in the accessibility menu. I think this is just a general display thing. So in this case, I can make things 150% larger. So if I pull up a website here, it's going to reload. And yep, okay. But I can scroll down the NFL's website, and things are a bit larger than they were before. So you can kind of see how the text here and these displays are a bit larger. And if I go back to my settings, change this back, and then switch again and reload. Let it do all that. And scroll past all of the ads because, that's what we do here. Things are a little bit smaller. It's a little harder to tell because websites resize and reflow to match your screen, but there is a bit of a difference. So it's much more noticeable on apps and such. But it is a nice feature just to have a kind of default larger size for everything. Now we do have font style and size as well. One thing with this though, if you're using it with the website, Android is a little picky about what it applies to. And I have found that sometimes links and buttons it doesn't work with. So I can max this out. If I go back to the NFL's site, it'll reload again. As you notice, okay, so something like my cookie text has changed, but then these links and such have not. So that's something with Android of it only applies to specific tags regarding text, but things like links or buttons that have text in them, it won't change. So it's probably most useful if you're doing something like reading a book or working with an app or something that's a lot of text. That's probably when you're going to want to use this. Otherwise, it might actually be more of a pain than when you are um, navigating the web. Hearing enhancements is a lot like James has. So we have hearing aid support built in here. We can also amplify ambient sound. So it will pick up and listen to things if you have hearing aids or even just Bluetooth headphones connected, or you just regular headphones, at least with my phone, I can do that. It will just pick up and amplify things around me. You can also adapt it to match your hearing range. So you can try and tune what it picks up to match your hearing if you're hard of hearing. It can also change balance. Um, so if you're listening to something on your headphones, video or something, you can make it mono. You can balance it towards left or right if one ear is better than the other, or vice versa. You can aim it, uh, aim it towards that side that's either better, or just try to balance it so that they're roughly the same. It does not apply to calls, as you see right there. Now, we have two different types of captioning available here that Android gives us. Transcribe is live speech. So one thing I've seen other users in, and I can't really show it here because it's a lot more useful when you have more than one person, but also because I did not install it. Oop. Sometimes the Zoom doesn't like sharing my screen properly. So that's why it's blinking in and out, and I apologize for that. That's just a feature of Zoom, sorry, and Android. But in either event, live transcribe, you could put your phone down in between you and another person. I'm just gonna do this quick because that helps. And we'll pick up the speech and start writing it out. So I've seen a couple of the hard of hearing or even deaf users in our office do this with their phone. They'll put it out in front of them and between me and them, and it will read what I'm telling them so that we don't have to have a ASL interpreter on hand. I don't have to try and finger spell everything because that's all I really know. It gives us a way to communicate that makes things easier and has something right in their pocket that can just work. Live captioning is just for media. So if you have videos playing in an app or videos on your phone, it will just try and do automated captioning, kind of like how you have on YouTube. Most of the time, apps and videos online have that kind of capability too. But if it doesn't, this is your next best bet. You can also change your subtitle settings here. In this case, I have either Samsung or Google, so I can change which one, essentially which AI is using it, and find out which is the more accurate of the two. And then we have the sound detectors like James was showing earlier, where your phone will pick up things like a doorbell or something and alert you that this is coming up. Interaction and dexterity, same as James was talking about. Instead of adapt touch or what that was called, I have assistant menu. This kind of does the same thing where I now have there's this window pane button here, and that gives me kind of the same options. I can do home, screen off, volume, screenshots, notification panel, zoom, cursor, screen control. I can give myself some custom settings as well. In this case, the cursor means I have now a panel that I can use as like a mouse cursor or something. So if you see I have a mouse cursor here on my view, I have essentially a trackpad kind of in the bottom corner of my view here that I am using. Those scroll buttons on the uh, right side and the bottom let me kind of move the screen as I'm moving around. So I'm able to use this to use it as essentially a mouse instead of trying to do everything on the phone with my fingers. Then we have kind of the same other options. We have some interactions that we can change. We can change how to turn the screen on and off, answering and ending calls rather than having to hold and drag in order to answer a call or to turn it off. Instead, this will make it just so it's just a single press, or I can give it some other kind of interaction to do so. So I can also have it, answer automatically. I can end it with the power key, that kind of thing. You can also, as you notice, read names aloud. I can also change the interaction controls for all of my other basic functions back home, the reset buttons, the ones at the bottom, the keyboard, or other options like that. You can also change touch settings. I believe iOS can do this as well, where you can change how long you have to hold it. In the case of if you have uh, trouble with physical dexterity, you're not able to hold it down for too long, I can change that to a shorter duration. I can make it a longer duration if you're not able to pull your finger away in time. Same for taps, like what is treated as a tap, how long, what is considered a double. In some cases, I can just say, I want to use something entirely different. Or avoid multiple tapping if you have, shaking in your hands or something. Instead of, accidentally triple tapping or double tapping something, you can make it so that it requires a half second or a second interval so that you're not accidentally double tapping everything. And then kind of the same options you see in Windows. You have sticky keys, slow keys, and bounce keys. We covered these a bit in the other webinar. Again, I will post that link shortly. So I'm not going to go into them here, but they're all available in Android. So if you found those useful on Windows, you'll find them useful here probably. Now, there's some advanced settings. So this is where we can change, like iOS did, we can change what our power and volume keys do. So in this case, I can set the same kind of options that James was showing at the end there. I can enable my accessibility menu, my voice assistant, so voice control. I can activate TalkBack, that's the screen reader. I can activate the universal switches, so if I want to control it with an external device. James has a video about that he'll show you shortly. All the color settings, all of that is available here. So I can make those appear when I'm pressing power and volume. In this case, as you notice, I have my volume up and down keys to automatically turn on TalkBack, so I don't have to enter this menu every time. I can also change what the flash notifications, what it does in this case. Instead of just having that little tiny LED, I can instead make it so that it's either the camera light, so if it's in the front, so if I have my phone face down or something, or I can make this whole screen flash if I need to draw attention. I know a lot of deaf and hard of hearing users tend to use this because either that little light is not noticeable, or they want to use it for more important things. They might use the light for just like a text message, but they might do the whole screen for something like a fire alarm. So that really gets their attention. So that way you can kind of, divvy up what you're getting. Uh, And then let me jump to installed services because we only got 10 minutes. I want to give enough time for both the video and questions. So this is where we have a couple of the other options that James talked about. We have select to speak here. This is separate because it's a separate service. It's not, it is built in, but it is considered not part of the whole Vision things because it's using additional software. So that is available in here. You can turn this on in here, change its settings, what it works with. Same idea. There's the accessibility menu. That's what I was showing before. I can also just turn this on. It will require access to my whole phone. I'm not going to show that for now, but it gives you an on-screen menu where you can do kind of the same things you saw on the physical assistant, but it has more options because you can enable all these other additional accessibility settings from that menu at any time. And then finally, TalkBack. This is our screen reader. So I will turn that on. So that blue highlight on the screen is its focus indicator. You might be able to hear it if I turn it up. And you might be able to hear that, I'm not sure. But in either event, that is the, oops, I didn't want to do that. That is the screen reader. So it is able to kind of do the same thing. Now, the nice thing about it is that I can also press and hold on something in order to move directly to it. So this is called navigate by exploration. So some users will do this instead. I believe you can do this with TalkBack as well. So you can do the swipe method James was talking about, where you can just move item by item, or you can press and hold on an area and we'll jump to that and speak whatever it finds. In this case, because these paragraphs are treated as a single entity, it will read this entire thing. In other cases, if I try to read if I do this on a website or something, it might do it paragraph by paragraph. It really depends on how it's been coded. So overall, it's a lot of the same settings as you saw on iOS. The differences are really, there are one or two things that Android doesn't have or isn't as useful. In this case, the inversion and the font size. However, there are some more options available in Android because it's links to Windows and has some of the additional features that you can get from your desktop. With that, let me stop sharing my screen. Stop share. There we go. So that is roughly everything with Android. Again, if you have questions, because we went through everything really fast, please reach out and we'd be happy to explain them to you.
Absolutely. Thank you, Stephen. Real quick, I'm going to close this down here. Other AT that can work with phones, it really can be anything that's Bluetooth accessible. So that's kind of the name of the game, is a Bluetooth mouse or external keyboard. You can connect and use those freely with your device. So I could use a mounting system. I could mount my phone on a wheelchair or table or really anywhere. And be able to interact with it with external devices. So, joysticks. There's even ways to use your power wheelchair joystick to actually navigate, things like your computer and phone, etc. It's wearable mice, eye gaze technology. iPads specifically, they used to have a device for the iPad Pros called the Skyle. And that was a external device I could put my iPad Pro into, pictured right here. But iOS is going to come out. I was looking this up earlier. This article was dropped in May. So I'm not exactly sure what update's going to include this and what phone you need hardware-wise. But ideally with AI, iPhones are getting towards, and I can't speak on Android, but like specifically iOS devices are going to use AI and your front-facing camera to be able to use eye tracking. It'll learn how your eyes work and be able to navigate through your phone with your eyes and using a dwell timing type of method of clicking, which is when you just dwell or stare at something long enough, the dwell timer kicks in and will click on things for you. So and updates to come and potentially hardware to come. I'm not exactly sure the specs that are needed quite yet. I did put a link to this article. It's directly off Apple's website that was talking about eye tracking and things that are going to be coming out soon. So, essentially just more ways to make these devices accessible, right? Switch control. I did talk about this briefly.
Have you ever wondered how a person with disability
Is that audio coming through?
could use a touch device like an iPhone or an iPad if they lack the movement to be able to?
So I'm just going to kind of fast forward a little bit here, but basically what this person is doing is by pressing a switch or this red jelly bean switch, this button that's staged right over here. It can allow you to navigate through your phone by just pressing that button.
And it allows a user to interact with an Apple device without needing to directly touch the screen. Instead, using an external device like a jelly bean button sip and puff switch, or even a wheelchair joystick as their input device. Such an external device can be connected via cable or Bluetooth and can mimic regular screen touches by controlling a movable on-screen selector in a process traditionally referred to in the disability community as switch.
So basically what is enabled here is auto scanning. So that highlighted blue box that's going through all the clickable options, it's auto scanning. So it's just gonna, every second or so, it'll go to the next one. And when it's on the button that you want to click on, he's just hitting that red jelly bean button right there. So essentially that's auto scanning with the switch button to click on things. It could be switch scanning, that I press the button and that's what scans. I could have another switch that's my go ahead button or my okay button or my select button. So I could use two switches, one for scanning, one for clicking on things. And there's also a lot of ways to go into your switch accessibility settings. I can create recipes. Like I hit this button and something else happens, and I can make that a very unique recipe. I can make it turning a page in a digital book. I can make one switch for next page, one switch for a previous page, you know, kind of, etc. So it's very customizable on what I want that switch to do when I press it. And I'm just going to kind of leave that.
Have you ever wondered how a person
Whoops.
with
and I'm just going to leave that there because it's kind of more of an overview on that. But that is what we have for everybody today. We do have some social media things, Facebook and YouTube, of course. So go ahead and check out our YouTube page for any archived webinars that we've done as a team. There's all kinds of different topics that we have covered. And don't hesitate to reach out to us with any questions, inquiries, you know, IT questions, you know, specific AT device questions, and etc. It's been a pleasure speaking today, and we will, I know we're like right up against 2, but if there's any last questions, we will open it up for questions now. And thanks again for joining us.
Yeah, thank you very much, everyone. I saw James had answered this already, but someone had asked, I'm wondering how the screen reader works with websites. And as James said, it does depend on how accessible the site is. So obviously, you know, we need things like alt text and proper heading structure and such. We didn't demonstrate it today, but we have talked about it at some of our testing webinars that are in the playlist. I provided the link to the ease of access webinar that James and I did a couple months ago. It's not in there, but if you look in the other rest of that playlist, you'll find it. But typically screen readers work as I wrote there. On mobile, you swipe left or right to navigate. You can do exploration where you kind of move your finger across the screen and hold it somewhere and it will read what's there. And you double tap things to interact. So if you want to press a link, you'll highlight the link and then double tap it to press. You can, though, like a desktop screen reader, you can change it to use headings or links or any of those other shortcuts. On Android, you would do a V shape, either up and down diagonal, or vice versa, going down and then up. And that will open a short menu, and then you can swipe left or right to determine what element type you want to use. I believe on iOS it's an L shape, but I'm not 100% sure on that gesture because I haven't touched, I haven't used that in several years at this point. But I know you are able to set, you know, switch between essentially the elements you want to scroll through rather than reading everything. There are other additional features these have. If you do an L shape with Android, it will open up its menu where you can change all of its settings and such. So they're pretty powerful. I would say comparable to things like JAWS and NVDA. It will simply take some getting used to because it's a lot of touch gestures and such. If you are not able to or do not want to use touch gestures, you can set them up to work with things like a keyboard and such. In our case, in Android, you are able to set it up again with like a Braille note and a Braille display to control it. I don't have as much experience with that. James can probably tell you more, but I would suggest you reach out to him.
Absolutely. Thanks, Stephen.
Well, thank you. All right. Well, the link is available to the previous webinar. This is recorded and will be posted on our YouTube channel. I should have it up by Friday. Thanks again to James for joining us today. It's always a pleasure to show off more of what TAP does rather than just our little corner of the office does. So with that, I'm going to stop the recording.